Are you tired of sitting on the sidelines watching opportunities pass you by? You know you have what it takes, but something's missing. It could be doubt, confidence, or fear that you're not representing your best self. Whatever it is, it stops now. It's time to align your passion with your purpose and seize the opportunities that await you. I want to see you get back in the game. So join me and my expert guests as we talk all things image, branding, and a bit of entrepreneurship. So if you're ready to gain insightful tips, tools, and strategies to help you amplify your presence and define your impact for greater success, sit with us as we talk about it. Welcome back to the Image Connection Show, where we go beneath the surface of image, branding, and presence to help you live and lead with impact. I'm your host, Jenny Dewberry, certified international image, personal brand coach, and consultant. And I'm so happy to have you here with me today. The Image Connection Show is a conversation-driven show that explores how inner alignment influences outer image, personal brand, visibility, and presence. Everything that you do, from the way you speak to how you present yourself, is quietly influenced by what's happening inside. And when those barriers go unchecked, they quietly tarnish your confidence or impact your confidence and your visibility and your leadership presence. And so this show exists to help you connect that so that you are not just seen, but you are fully understood. And today I have with me Debbie Simmons. Debbie is the founder and CEO of Anchor Point and the creator of the Architecture of Trust, a management discipline that helps leaders understand how organizational structure influences trust, decision-making, and execution. Based in Houston, Texas, she works with individuals and organizations to build stronger foundations for leadership and performance through this approach. So help me welcome Debbie as she helps us unpack what leadership trust means and how it can help you build that trust and that influence. Thanks for being on the show, Debbie. I'm kind of all over.
I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Glad to have you. So glad to have you. I think this is a important conversation, especially when it comes to organizational structure and leadership. And so I was excited to have you come on and join us today and not just talk about image and branding, but true leadership and what it looks like from an alignment and true structure standpoint. Mm-hmm. But I want to start with this. You're a mother of 13. And so I wanted to start. I wanted to start with that because you said being a mother of 13, it played a role, a substantial role in you building trust, legacy, and leadership. And so I just wanted to talk about how that connected and how that worked, you know.
Well, sure. First of all, I'll tell you, my master's in organizational management comes in very handy at times. Sure. But I would say, my first 4 children were quadruplets, and they were born and passed away in my arms. And that was a place where I learned that I can't control everything, right? Because I would have controlled that if I could, right? But I also had to learn how to walk through that setback and there's a couple of really good questions that came out of that really helped me over the years. That was 30 years ago. And one of the questions was learning to give up the why. I did not, the why question is a very internal question that causes us to get stuck. And in order for me to heal and ultimately be able to thrive, I had to be able to be okay without that answer.
Yeah.
And, I realized that it also is a spiral question because even if I'd have got a good answer for why, my next question would be why, because it doesn't solve my pain. It doesn't take away the loss. And so being able to lay that question down very early on and to swap to a different question. And that question was, how do I survive? And that question moves me into action because it looks for breathing, because I want to get in my prefrontal cortex, but also it gets to this idea of take the next best step,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
take a next best step and let it show you what the next one's going to be and show you what the next one's going to be. And
Right.
this is, for me, kind of a faith journey and a healing journey. But
Mhm.
I also noticed that as I went through that process and I was getting better, I actually changed the question from
Mhm.
how do I survive? Because a lot of us stop there. I then began to say, okay, how do I thrive?
Right.
How,
Good.
um, and I trust God. So I'm like, God, you're a redeemer of stories. Take this
Mhm.
painful story and use it to help people and help me make an impact and do all this stuff. And that led to actually being open to adopting. And we adopted 3 times, 9 children with trauma backgrounds. And then what happened was I learned a lot about myself. What happens when the pressure goes up, right? And
Mhm.
pieces in me for me to be the best leader, best mom that I needed to work on so that I could be fully present in the lives of these children and be able to handle their trauma backgrounds to
Mhm.
help them figure their way. And then I got this wonderful opportunity to start a ministry and build it from
Mhm.
scratch. Now it's a multi-million-dollar organization impacting thousands each year. And, you know, that brings with it. And I still ask these same questions. How do I survive? How do I thrive?
Mhm.
Put down why. I've used these for 30 plus years, and
Wow.
they're so valuable to keeping me moving in the right direction and not getting stuck. And I think getting stuck as we grow as people is really our biggest challenge in
Mhm.
leadership. A lot of times is we
Yeah.
get stuck in that why question. So that's really how momhood has grown me more than it's grown my children. And
Yeah.
it's been a wonderful journey, but that organizational management degree is very helpful.
Mhm. Yeah. And then leadership, and I mean you're going to use it most when you're building a family.
Mhm.
Overseeing your children and pouring into them and leading them. I mean, that's your most. I think that's your most concentrated area of leadership, to lead them in the right direction. For
Yeah,
one.
so and I got a long period of time to do it, right? I got lots of kids and lots of years, and
Mhm.
the truth of the matter is, it's the same with my staff.
Yeah.
It's the same if I'm volunteering in a church. It's the same if I'm doing these things, these skills of asking those types of questions and just defaulting to those are extremely positive
Mhm.
for movement forward, and that's what we want.
Right. Yeah. And you talk about helping leaders build trust, like a structure, like you
Mhm.
probably had to build in your family structure in order for it to, flow and such. Um, Solid, lasting, and beyond just sentiment. Can you explain what that looks like, or how
Sure.
you approach that?
Yeah. So when we think about structure and organizations, I call it
Mhm.
the architecture of trust, which is really just an organizational operating system. And
Mhm.
what it says is that your organization can only move at the speed of trust. And that is based on the structure of your organization, meaning how aligned is your leadership? How clear is the decision making process and the execution reliability? And what I find when I'm dealing with CEOs and executives is, they ask questions like I find myself doing. I'm like, why is that coming back to me again? I
Mhm.
thought we made that decision. What's taking so long? And what
Right.
happens is in my family or in the life of Anchor Point and what I see
Mhm.
with other CEOs is that we become the person who fills all the holes in the bucket, right? And
Mhm.
we're like
Yeah.
holding it like this. And you know what happens is I can't physically get to all of them, right? So the
Right.
structure of the organization has to take my place, or we
Mhm.
can never grow bigger than me. Okay. And so that's what, as CEOs, we have to start doing is looking at is the leadership aligned? Is decisions clear? Is execution? And the best way we know that is when the pressure goes up, what
Mhm.
happens? What
Yeah.
leaks? right?
That's
And
right.
when it leaks, it's nope. A lot of people really struggle with kind of the blame game, but I'm like, when it leaks, all it is telling us is we have an issue and we
Right.
need to go fix it and put a new process in place so we can trust the structure again. The
Hmm.
pressure is going to go up again. And do we
Always.
handle it differently? Same
Yeah.
thing in my family, right? A kid loses it. Maybe I lose it. Well,
Hmm.
I need to get some healing so that I can stay in that game, right? And so
Yeah.
I need to work on me. So I think for us as leaders, it's important of organizations. And I know a lot of people may be entrepreneurs, but as they begin to add staff, we
Hmm.
add complexity. When we add complexity, then the CEO, the key leader starts going, gosh, it used to be so easy. And
Yeah.
now
That's
it's hard.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is why it's all a structure problem.
Yeah.
It's not bad people. It is simply the structure. And then people begin to hesitate.
Hmm.
There's miscommunication. All these things start to happen, and we can fix it. And you got good people. Let's figure out how to let them loose, right? And
Right.
that's what we spend time doing.
Hmm. And that inclusivity to give them, and then us trusting ourselves first of all to give them this not free range, but this permission to to
Yeah,
to um to run, so to speak.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
trusting them that they're going to be able to do the job because first we have built that structure. They know the expectation, and
Mhm.
then allowing them to still be creative enough to show us, you know, what they're capable of and still
Yeah.
fall in alignment with what it is that we expect at the end of whatever it is that they're
Yes,
doing.
and I think I've got a wonderful example. I had
Mhm.
a situation where we had a goal and objective that we're working on this year, which is absolutely great, right? But it wasn't clear as
Mhm.
to, this person knew they had the responsibility, but what wasn't clear was, what does done look like? Okay,
Yeah.
done in this case, in my mind, was you bring me back your recommendation. I
Mhm.
review it, we massage it, and we all land together. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, this person done looked like, well, I'm just going to go change this. And I'm like, wait a second, how
Yeah.
did that happen?
Yeah.
And I'm going, that's just because the decision clarity process was not good, right?
Right.
And I hadn't defined that her job was to bring back a recommendation,
Mhm.
and then we could all go together. And so she just went and did it. And then I had, potentially a donor calling me with an
Mhm.
issue about it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, how does that happen? And
Mhm.
it's because I did not clearly say, here's where I need you to land. And then we
Right.
need to touch base, and then we need to go together. And
Mhm.
that's on me as a leader, right? To create the
Right.
environment and the structure to make that happen. But I don't like hiccups like that. So I'm like, let's get that structure in place.
Yeah.
We can do this.
It throws things off. Even if perceptually it throws everything off, but things are
Yeah.
still in place. But for us, as leaders and leading people and making decisions, and then when someone comes in and kind of throws that off, it feels like things are gonna not particularly fall apart, but there's damage control. You feel like now I have to do damage control in a
And we
sense.
did, and the truth of the matter is we did have to do some of that, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But it's not, but I'm going, I could have thought this is a bad employee because they didn't bring it back and they just went wild on their own. That's not what actually happened. She was
Yeah,
being proactive, but I had not clearly defined
that's good.
where her endpoint was. And
Mhm.
so I was like, oh, I got to get better at that. Because I want her to be successful. She's a great employee. She's trying to do the right things, and she's not trying to harm the organization. So, I need to take that,
That's
hit
right.
that lesson that needs to be done as a leader and make those changes.
And that's a part of being a leader is taking accountability. When it's on you, it's on you, and be big enough and confident enough to say that.
Yeah.
You
And I
told
can do that,
me.
but I was like, I didn't even
Yeah,
know that was on me. I didn't even know I didn't do that. So I'm like, okay, now I
right.
know.
When
I'll
you
fix
when you
it.
thought
So
about it, yeah, just
mhm,
and again, there you go with the structure and being a bit more clear, providing clarity, so that they, like you said, they know what the finish looks like, the
mhm,
done looks like. And so, from a structural system, um, how does one build that trust instead of
Mhm.
just it's more than a feeling. You know, I feel like I trust her, I like her, I trust her or him, or trust them. But how is that actually built where a person knows without a doubt that
Mhm.
they can trust you, you can trust them, the decision making, during the decision making process, they can trust your decisions because you're not going to lead them astray. You're gonna, you know, you're kind of in a coaching
Yeah.
situation. When you're in when you're in a leadership position, you're coaching. That's your
Oh, yeah.
job too, is to coach. So
Yeah.
how does that happen? How
Yeah.
can
Everybody's watching. So we got to
Mhm,
remember everybody's watching and learning how I am going to lead in this organization. So I'd first of all say, hey, the better your structure is, it automatically increases trust because
mhm,
you understand the process, everybody's on the same page, and we are making good on that. Now, I will tell you when we look at like us as leaders, okay,
mhm,
I can say that I trust the structure or I trust Jesus or I trust whatever.
mhm,
Just like you and I are trusting the chairs that we are sitting on. I've tested this chair under pressure
mhm.
lots of times and it
Yes,
holds me every
yeah,
time, right? And so
yeah.
I don't even think twice about sitting down in here,
Mhm.
okay?
That's right.
But, what happens with you and I, we personally say we trust certain things, and then when the pressure goes up, we as individuals
Mhm.
may default to different things that we have trusted in the past. So,
Right.
like, for instance, the reason Anchor Point got built was because I am really good at control and hustle,
Hmm.
okay? And that is some default mechanisms. Now think about it. Why does
Mhm.
Debbie control? Debbie does control because Debbie lost 4 boys,
Yeah.
right? In a situation I couldn't control, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"I ain't going there again. I'm
Right.
gonna get this sucker. I'm gonna get my hands on everything."
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's great as long as I can show up at 100%. Okay. If
It
I get
is.
injured or I have a crisis or I'm not able to be there, then I can't be the hand with all the
Mhm.
holes covered, right? And then the structure begins to leak and it's a problem. But the other dangerous thing that I teach when I live out of control and hustle is
Mhm.
that that becomes the expectation for everyone is you are valued if you can control and hustle. And think about what society says about us. Society says let's celebrate control and hustle.
Mhm.
Those people, they make it, they're the movers and shakers and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
that also kill you as
Yes.
you continue to grow and build and expand and everything. And as my organization has gotten bigger, I'm like, I got a bigger bucket, there's more holes, I've used my toes and my fingers, and I'm like,
Everything.
what do I do?
What's next? What's
Yeah,
left?
and so if I don't do the structure, but then what I need to think about as an individual, this is a
Mhm.
mom, any kind of leader, is that if I'm defaulting to control and hustle under pressure, when I say I trust the structure or I trust
Mhm.
Jesus or whatever, then I need to understand that that is not getting me the result that I necessarily want, right? And
Mhm.
because like control creates anxiety because life is uncontrollable,
Mhm. It
right?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I can, if I want to be a better leader, I need to learn to replace control with maybe adaptability.
Mhm.
Okay. And learn to look for something better. And what can I put in my life that will help me
Mhm.
move that direction the next time issues come up, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think there's a lot of work for us to do on, ourselves. Our typical ones that we do as individuals
Mhm.
are like control, hustle, silence, and then approval, seeking approval of the
Yes.
world, certainty, and familiarity. Okay, those are what we typically default to
Mhm.
when pressure goes up. And so that is where we have to go. Okay, how is that serving? How can I
Right.
identify that? That's super powerful if I can just identify it. Okay, because if I
Mhm.
can name it, I can tame it, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of outcome is this giving me? Do I
Yeah.
even like it? Approval creates insecurity because
Mhm.
opinions change. Hustle creates burnout, all of these things. And then
Right.
I need to replace it with something else. So if I'm trusting hustle, maybe I need to trust consistent execution,
That's
and
good.
things like that. And so what can I replace it with that will allow me to begin to operate differently?
Mhm.
Because I definitely don't want my whole staff to kill over from control and hustle,
Yeah, and
right?
hustle. Yeah.
And they watched me do it well for years. But then I ended up with a huge injury that really should have killed me. And
Yeah.
that began to show us that the organization was leaking. And
Mhm.
I had to go change a lot of things about me, work on me a lot, but also work on that structure
Mhm.
because I want to be here and I want the organization to be here well after I'm gone. And so, that's where we get to looking at like, how does legacy go? It goes because the structure is there that the
Mhm.
leader can walk away at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and the hustle a part of leadership and building, and just in in entrepreneurship especially.
Mhm.
There's that mindset that I have to hustle, I have to constantly go, I have to constantly go. But we have gifts, and we have people that can help us around. That's leadership too, being able to
Mhm.
let go and
Mhm.
delegate. We were talking about. I was at a networking event earlier today, and we were talking about this very thing, how what happens when things leak, or what happens when I cannot be present. Who can stand in as me, so to speak? Who is my clone? They may not do it exactly like I do it, but they'll keep things flowing. Everything may not be perfect because they're going to do it their way, but that trust. Who do you
Mhm.
trust to step in, and you know that you can be gone for 30 days and you come back and your business is still standing and functioning and generating, um,
Yeah, so
revenue.
that is one of the key questions I ask leaders. It's like,
Mhm.
if you were gone for 30 days, would your organization continue to run the way you would run it if you were gone? And almost every one of them go, no. And that just tells you, hey, we need to work on the structure.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not that it's okay that people might do things a little bit differently, but are they aligned with your vision? Do they understand how decisions should be made, and do they understand how execution happens? And if we do that, if we get better and better and better at that, then it's easier for people to stand in for us because the structure is solid.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely. And so that starts from the onset,
mhm,
and then they know, like you said, not just one person knows, but anyone that has their hand in what it is that you're leading and what
mhm,
you're doing and who you're leading. Again, like you said, they're not going to do it exactly like you, but they know the structure, they know the systems, and they know how this is supposed to look and how it's supposed to flow. And they're gonna do their what it takes to flow, to ensure that things flow. And for me personally, being in business as a solopreneur, and then finally being able to get help along the way, someone that can help me along the way. Um, I felt like that hustle. You got to do more. You have to do more. You have to do more, because if you don't do more, then
mhm.
you don't have a business, or you're not really working. But I learned that, as you said, what I really needed was clarity. I needed
Mhm.
structure. I
Yeah.
needed clarity, and I needed to stop trying to live up to the expectations of what others thought
Mhm.
I should be doing, because that right there, that produces that hustle mindset too. Well, I didn't do this, and if I don't do it this way, someone's gonna, um,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
someone's gonna have an opinion about it. So I have to do it this way because this person is looking and that person is looking. So, can you discuss like leadership, purpose, alignment, and how all of that can erode in that hustle, with
Yeah.
that hustle mindset? Mm-hmm.
Well, not even just with the hustle mindset. Everything in our world is moving toward chaos. It's just scientific. It's just scientific law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so what we need to understand is that structure and the discipline of the structure is something that we have to fight for. Okay, in
Mhm.
my personal life, in my work life, as a leader, because if not, it's going to immediately move toward chaos. Okay,
Mhm.
and you might not see it initially at first, but things begin to slip.
Yeah.
Same thing goes with my weight. I might eat cheesecake just a bite or two, and then I do
Mhm.
it 4 or 5 days in a row. And then the next thing,
Okay.
I mean, cheesecake all the time. And
Yeah.
now I've gained 10 pounds. Right. And
Mhm.
so that same discipline, has to be there. And it's funny because when things work really well, we love it.
Mhm.
And we fight the discipline, and it actually gives us more freedom. So we have to, because this is a journey of life, we have to fall in love with the structure and the discipline and the art of doing this, knowing that the benefits are way better than
Mhm.
anything we would have if we did not have those. Okay. And
Right.
sometimes it takes us drifting to really go, oh my gosh, that wasn't very smart. I need to go back over here, and I need to apply this to me and work on these things so that I
Mhm.
can be better and the organization can be better. But we have to fight for it because
Right.
it doesn't come easy. And it's I like the idea of just building it so it's so natural
Yes.
that we can't help but do it.
Yeah.
And that it feels funny when we don't.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
I will tell you, as we build Anchor Point to be able to live past the founder one day, uh,
Mhm.
constant struggle to do that.
Mhm.
We're getting better, and we're not quite there yet, but it's like my job as a leader becomes more visionary and
Mhm.
also the defender of the structure that we're going to get this right.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, so,
Again, legacy. You're working and working and structuring things now so that it will sustain. You
mhm.
know, and the legacy will continue, and you're able to leave that legacy to whomever it is that you decide.
Right. Yeah. I think, just take a picture of, like I have 5 grandkids under 6 right now in my house.
Um,
And you know what? You can put them in a room and have them sit quietly and they're doing
mhm.
really good. And if I turn my back for
Oh
5
yeah.
minutes even, I'm like, where did one of you go? And what
Right.
are you doing hanging off the chandelier? And this is the example of structure,
Mhm.
right?
That's
Is
right.
we gotta fight for it because I'm like, get down, sit down,
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
get this. So I think if we could just remember that, it's like you got all these little kids running around and like,
Mhm.
okay, we gotta have more structure because
Yeah.
this is gonna take us down. And
That's right.
this is what we're fighting for in our businesses
Yeah.
because
And
it's the best way.
it is the best way. And everyone is not going to fall in line. You're going to,
Yeah.
so you're constantly, like you said, working, you're constantly challenging. And so, like you said, for me, I had to really sit with some things and,
Mhm.
why did I approach this way? And why didn't I stick with this new system, so to speak? I call it a system, a process that was chaotic but easier, but because discipline, as you said, is difficult to be disciplined. I mean, that takes work, it takes practice. But again, just like a lot of things that I coach on in my business, once you do that thing and you're doing it and you're practicing, it just becomes a part of who you are. And if, like you said, if you're not doing it, then you feel misaligned. You feel like you don't feel like yourself anymore because you're missing something, a part
Yeah.
of who you have
The
become.
truth Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, as we move into creating structure personally or in business,
Mhm.
I always go, it's 90 days. 90 days before we break through, and it's not
Mhm.
like really hard. And
Yeah.
it is going to get more chaotic before it gets better because it's going to identify all this junk that we have to work through. But
Mhm.
got to work through that. And then around 90 days, we'll finally get the breakthrough that we need to get the rhythm that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And so someone listening and they're trying to navigate this, first of all, a leadership role and the structure, how to become more structured in what they're doing. I mean, we've talked about it, but um, what can you land clear, so they can say, oh, an aha moment. This is what I can do. This is where I can begin
Mhm.
to build this structure.
Mhm. Yeah, so I would say, on an individual level, being able to name, like, what your default is when the
Mhm.
pressure goes up, that
Yeah.
is so powerful because once you know, you can't unknow it, right? And so
That's
it's like,
right.
"Oh my gosh, I don't like what I become in this situation." when I'm hustling, it doesn't benefit me this way, it doesn't do this, then that will at least begin to get us to proactively start thinking about, okay, how could I make some adjustments?
Mhm.
And it's not bad people in my organization in particular. It's just a bad structure. And then, for people who are running companies with, multiple people in them, then I would go, you know what? How, think about it. If you were gone for 30 days, could it run
Mhm.
without you
Yeah.
and run like you would want it run? And if the answer is no, then we've got some work to do on our structure. And so then I would say, hey, go over to the architectureoftrust.co and take the diagnostic. It's going to tell you whether you're struggling in leadership alignment, decision clarity, or
Mhm.
execution reliability.
Yeah.
And then what if I was working with you directly, what we would begin to do is take whichever one of those turns out weak and let's go to your leadership or your key people and let's
Mhm.
start talking through this and figure out how we can improve what's happening in your organization so that it can be solid. And then we're going to go on a journey together. We're going to learn as the pressure goes up how well it's
Mhm.
working.
Yeah.
And so I would go, you know, in both of those cases, personal or business,
Mhm.
just being able to identify where we are
Yeah.
is super powerful for being able to figure our way. And
Mhm.
that is for me the biggest takeaway. I always look, it's that question of how do I survive, right?
Mhm.
How do I figure my way?
Right.
That
Once you survive.
same
Yeah.
question, and as I get good at that, then I can go to, okay, how do I thrive?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And those are the things that have served me so well that I would say these are wonderful jumping off points for
Mhm.
you to take it to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. I say that too. If you can't name it, you can't change it. So you
Yeah,
have to be able to identify whatever that barrier is, whatever that um, whatever it is. You have to be able to name it again in order to be able to sit back and identify it, and then identify the source as well. So
mhm,
Debbie, someone's
mhm.
listening and they want to learn more about you or connect with you. How would they be able to do that?
Yeah, so they can go to the Debbie Simmons Speaks.com. The Facebook is the Debbie Simmons Speaks, all of them, and the LinkedIn is just Debbie Simmons.
Mhm.
But you can find me there on all of those different places. And then the architectureoftrust.co is for the company people. That's a wonderful next step there. And then I would say, as a gift to your listeners, I'd love
Mhm.
to just offer them my book, The Heart of Legacy, which talks about being a focused, faithful, and fearless leader. And it gives you wonderful next steps in there. And that book is free. So you just go to theheartoflegacy.com and you can get access to it.
That's
So that would be my next blessing to you guys to help you go to the next level
yeah.
and what.
It's a great resource. It's
Mhm.
great resource. So thank you for that. We're going to take a quick commercial and then we'll be back with Debbie Simmons. She's the founder and CEO of Anchor Point and the creator of the Architecture of Trust. Back.
You're not just building a career, you're building a reputation and that of your business. At People Power Consultancy, we coach ambitious professionals to refine their image and shape a personal brand that opens doors. Because the way you show up is your message. If you're tired of blending in, second guessing your presence, or feeling unseen, this is your moment to stand out with purpose and polish. Visit peoplepowerconsultancy.com to start your transformation. Your next level has a look. Let's define it.
Okay, I am back with Debbie Simmons. We've been talking about leadership, structural leadership and alignment, and how structural leadership essentially can make things better and easier within your organization or for you personally. And so I do want to ask you, we talked a bit about legacy. So I wanted
Mhm.
to ask, what does legacy look like when we design it,
Mhm.
trust beyond charisma and all the achievements and accolades? What does that look like on its own?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I go back to when I was sitting in the hospital when the boys died in my arms, and I went, eternity matters. Legacy matters. And so I became a person who was like, you know what? If I'm going to leave a powerful legacy, of impact and everything, then I have to live my life very intentionally. So I like to say I have to live my legacy now. And so I just from that point became very focused on being intentional about what I do with my time and how I invest in different things personally, because a lot of people go legacy defaults to money in their minds. And to me, it really is more about impact. And I would tell you that the things that we build for ourselves really don't matter as much as the things that we build that impact others.
Right.
That is, and so I'm going, I want Anchor Point to be here long after I'm gone. And so what do I need to do intentionally to be able to do that? And so we can write our script, or we can let our script be written, and we will have legacy. We just get to determine how we go about this. And so I just encourage everyone to be super intentional about the time we have. We think we have forever, and forever we do not have. And so that is for me. And that is why the structure in an organization is so important. And being able to trust it is because that gives freedom to the staff to do things that then give the way I know that the architecture of trust is working in my organization is my office becomes quiet. Okay. And that's disarming because I'm like, I'm a control freak. I need to be over there. But it becomes right. So, but it becomes quiet. And it becomes quiet because the organization is working the way that it is. And I'm not having to fill so many holes. Right. So then once I get past the shock of that, okay, and it needs to become a more regular occurrence, what then happens is I get to breathe. And when I get to breathe, I get to dream. Okay. And this is the things that only I, as a key leader, can do. I can do vision. I can dream of new things that we can do, more impact that we can have. And I can't do that if the structure is not something we can trust. And so that is where I go, that's where the real legacy is for me to get back in that space that only I can do and dream and want for the organization as far as impact. And that will change the world. Well, if more of us got there, right? And that's what we need to be after. So I think that for me wraps up the concept of intentional legacy as an individual, but intentional legacy as a leader within the organizations that I have the ability to influence.
Right. Yeah, that's really good because as you said, it's just like a reputation. It's gonna be out there. You're gonna be remembered, but how do you want to be remembered? And what do you want to leave behind? And I do like that you mentioned, you want to live your legacy now, which is wonderful. It's beautiful. But at some point you won't be here to leave that legacy. And it's still going to be here. People are still going to be able to think about Debbie Simmons, think about your foundation, the architecture of trust system, Anchor Point, and so doing the work now to ensure that it sustains, and that it has left a positive legacy and a positive impression, and then that people can pick up your book 20 years down the line and it be still relevant. That's work. It's work, but it's something. I think that, like you said, when you can build that structure, work on building that structure, it's work, but it's rewarding because you know that you're doing something meaningful and you're leaving something meaningful behind. So, yeah, well, I just say thank you for what you do. And then, you're leading from the heart. You're putting your faith into it. You're letting God lead you. So that guarantees sustainability.
I get really excited now that I am closer to 60 than I was ever before. I'm not 60 yet, but I'm getting closer. I get excited about thinking about, I'm not going to be here one day. And we're going to figure out how to sustain this organization and get this trust thing and get it where it can continue on. And I'm going to be in heaven. And I'm going to be there with Jesus and I'm going to be going, oh, look, they're serving another girl. And like, you let me be a part of that. And I'm like, I'm just like, it's still working. And I get excited about that. So that is the next level, right, of your legacy.
That is the next level. It is the ultimate level. So that's a beautiful thing. So we are anyone that's listening, if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments that we'll answer your questions. But Debbie, if someone were listening, whether that be an individual leader or someone working for an organization in leadership, and again, they're working, they're building, they're leading, but they don't have that structure, or they don't know how to particularly build that structure in a way to where it's going to be foundated, so the leaks are not coming.
Mhm.
What could you tell them? How can they, I mean, I know it's not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. That's right. Yeah.
It's a journey. How can they start that journey for one, and how can they identify where they have gaps?
Yeah. Okay. So if it's a company, go to that architectureoftrust.co. If you're the leader of that company, take that diagnostic. It's going to tell you exactly where you're struggling. However, even without the diagnostic, there's 3 areas: leadership alignment, decision clarity, execution reliability. Okay. If it's you and 3 or 4 other people, how aligned are you? Do you understand? Are you moving together? If I put them in separate rooms from you and I said, what's the top 3 priorities in your organization right now? Would their answers be the same as yours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how are we all aligned together? And that is extremely important. So it's not hard for us to begin to think of, and even like if it's just 1 or 2 people,
Mm-hmm.
and I would even ask the same question of my employees. That I'd be going, what do you think our top priorities are right now? And theirs might be very different than mine, right? Then we're not aligned.
That's right.
And I had an employee one time who was a great employee, but she was doing all these things that were driving me nuts. And I finally sat her down and I'm like, hey, what do you think is your highest priority right now? And
Yeah.
she told me, and I'm like, that ain't it.
Mm-mm.
And she was like, what? And I'm like, I think it's really good if you know what your boss thinks your highest priority is. And so we got on the same page. And
Yeah.
she was like, oh, now, and she excelled, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty simple,
Yeah.
but it's like taking the time to do that. And sometimes when our organizations are small, 1 or 2 people plus me, then I'm trying to run so fast, I'm not taking time to do that. So as a leader, I need to make sure that I'm not just working in the business, I'm working on the business. And if I'm working on the business, then I can begin to ask those questions like that. And then I think take away what I learned recently with that one employee. When I give an assignment or when we make an objective and someone's going to go with it, what does done look like for them? Is it bring back a report? Is it you're free to execute? Is it, whatever it is, just make sure that's clearly understood so that you're on the same page as to what you're going to get. And then that is super powerful. So you just look at each one of these little things and you start tweaking. And this will make your structure stronger. If you can't execute if you don't necessarily have a procedure.
Right.
So if you don't have if you don't have like what you want them to say on the phone, okay, well, that might be a place to start, right? Because
right. Yeah. Small things, like you said.
Yeah. And so I go, hey, this is how we make small incremental steps. And I go, don't worry. It's a journey.
Yeah.
Small, and it's really been laid on my heart lately that small changes really is how big obstacles are overcome.
That's right.
Okay.
Make big
And
impact.
I'm in Houston. My husband's in the space program. If you're off less than a degree, you can miss the moon, and it's a huge deal as we go. So I go, small steps are good. So, don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at this and I'm so overwhelmed because I'm off everywhere. I'm going, okay, breathe. What do you think is the biggest challenge right now? Let's figure that one out.
That's where it starts.
And then it's doable. It's like eating that elephant one bite at a time, I think they used to say. And I'm and I'm going, there'll always be tweaks that we can make. Remember, this is a journey. So we're going to be constantly doing that.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Debbie. And I like when you spoke about clarity and alignment. Those 2 things could either make your business or your career, or it will sink it. It is so important that we are aligned when we're trying to work towards a common goal, that we are truly aligned and that clarity is there and conversations are had so that we can continue to be aligned and work, together for that connected end result. So again, I want to thank you for spending your time with us today. And again, if you want to contact Debbie, you can contact her at thedebbisimmons.com. Her Facebook and YouTube and IG are all the Debbie Simmons Speak. And then LinkedIn is Debbie Simmons. She is the founder and CEO of Anchor Point and the creator of the Architecture of Trust. It's a management and discipline and leadership company. My name is Jenny Dewberry. And again, I am an internationally certified image, personal brand coach, and consultant. And if you want to learn more about what I do, you can visit my website at peoplepowerconsultancy.com. This is the Image Connection Show with Jenny D. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, share, tell your friends to watch, like, and share as well. It's called at the Image Connection Show. Excuse me, that's the handle for YouTube, is at the Image Connection Show. So you can find me there. And again, visit my website, learn a bit more about what I do, take a consultation, and then also take my brand assessment that is on my website as well. And actually, there's a QR code here where you can scan the QR code, take the brand assessment, and find out where you are in your brand and where you need maybe some support there. So again, thanks for joining us tonight. And remember, leadership is coaching. Leadership is the opportunity for you to build structure that is going to sustain and leave a legacy over time. Until next time, take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Image Connection Show. We truly appreciate you being here. We hope you'll join us again. And don't keep it to yourself. Invite a friend to tune in too. If you're ready to gain insightful tips, tools, and strategies to enhance your image, brand, and help you along your entrepreneur journey, this is where you want to be. I'll see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, keep showing up with purpose, presence, and power.